are embedded in.
Oh my god, we're gonna figure this out. We will figure this out.
You know me.
Oh my god. Yes. Okay. This is the stuff. So here we go. Oh yeah, the delta. The delta! We love a good delta, don't we? Especially pink ones. Huge fan of pink deltas. Myself. And here we go. There's plenty of ego in the very beginning too, 4 years, well, it would have been almost 10 years ago now. But when we were first talking about transitioning and kind of doing that early exploration, I remember trying to navigate with as much empathy and understanding as I could this resentment of, oh, you just get to opt in to womanhood without any of the awful parts of having grown up into it and socialized into it. It's hard for me to access that kind of resentment anymore. I don't feel it as much.
And I understand it too well. But it was so normal, and it made so much sense at the time to just be offended, especially in my own feminism, my own ideas of femininity and what it is to be a strong woman. To be equal, really equal. All of these impassionately held ideas about these things, and then to have my AMAB, only recently non-binary partner, start talking about gender reassignment surgery and hormone replacement therapy. At the beginning, I was offended. Of course, I was struggling with that, but in a soft way where I knew that wasn't about my partner. That she wasn't the reason or the cause of my hurt or my anger or my bitterness or my pain. That was the result of systemic oppression and rape culture that affected both of us, that had obviously impacted both of us, that we had been healing together from. And in that healing, they became something different. And so did I. The only other everything I knew about the type of support system that they would have where they were going, where she was going.
Oh.
Was a conversation with their mom.
Yeah. I don't know about that.
And understand. It's nice to see that.
Okay, so last one. I gotta wrap this up because I am trying to say one whole piece. It's just coming out in 3 pieces because you know me, lover of nuance.
True.
I know, I sound so down on myself. I really am. No, that was just the best pizza.
Stressed out.
It's just also a gorgeous day. I want to go for a walk.
I did go for a walk. It was great.
So we talked about, oh yeah, so my pronouns are they, she. And I center the they aspect of it because a really important part of my idea of myself in a transgender way is this idea of the deeply embedded political activism. For me, as I mentioned, it started out very strongly just feminism. And my journey in my life as a political activist. Oh, this is gonna get so intense. Holy shit. And this led me to solidarity movements and relational ideas about all sorts of other identities. Yeah, mucous membranes, they act up when you eat too. So, political activism, feminism, queer, BIPOC, disability activism, a couple others. These are kind of the main areas for me. But all of this kind of became, as I learned about the historical, like the actual historical events for this love revolution, right? Going, not just Stonewall was a riot, Stonewall was a brick thrown by a black trans woman. The amount of social pressure and pain and experiences, intersectionality of experiences. It's powerful. Those are people I bear torches for. And that's an integral part of my understanding of my own trans identity. Because I just always wanted to be a hero. Like an Olympian. Hercules. And so the more that I learned about this love revolution, the true timeline, the history, the order of events, the people who were involved, the different ways they impacted each other, how their work sparked other things that I had grown up with or seen or discovered or found and loved in this constant making of connections and bridging different areas of interest and community and perspective. All of that was possible because of the love, because
Marsha
of the
P.
centering
Johnson, by the way, that black trans woman was Marsha P. Johnson.
Positive,
And
sexual
everybody
loving
knows this, by the way. I know that this is not new to the community.
experiences, identities, feelings. So once again, I will say that we really owe the Love Revolution movement a lot, and my suggestion for showing it support is protecting sex workers.
I really do always come
And
back to that.
trans children.
It's true. It's like I have this whole idea.
This idea of theyness, though, has indigenous roots, at least partially, because they were the ones whose conceptualization of sex and gender so threatened the colonial empire that the threat need be extinguished, right?
Oh my god, here we go.
So there's a lot here.
She's literally just such a Star Wars person about it. She's like, and by the way...
And it's another reason I don't like potentially appropriating
Don't forget.
transgender identity. Freaks me out. Like, I don't want to hog space, right? For the binary trans individuals who are actively pursuing
legal protection for their bodies. And
it's exhausting, that's all I mean.
I think my legal identification as being non-binary is, it would probably be treated differently than as somebody who was perceived by others as not passing well enough and in need of being physically corrected violently, right? That's what happens. And I don't want to appropriate the meaning, or rather dishonor the meaning and purpose behind non-binary, gender fluid, gender queer folk in a variety of different traditions, including shamanistic ones. As we discuss this ever-evolving understanding of selfhood, gender, relations, and I hope as we continue to partake in the love revolution, we keep our ancestors fondly in mind as we think about our inherited families and the ways that we choose to honor them. My favorite thing about Indigenous perspective is that it has nothing to do with colonialism. I am so sick of this place. Gosh, sorry, I'm so sick of this place, you know? It's just, it only brings death. There are no, well, I guess I can't say no good things grow in stagnant water, because we have all seen really nice marshland in our lives, I hope. I feel those who are integral to the love revolution are also somehow connected to a love of wetlands and marshes. I'm not sure what gives me that feeling.
Climate change.
I do believe it's true. Oh no, I am definitely sure what gives me that feeling. It's actually the migration of people across the different regions of places. And if you look at wetlands and who those people are that live on wetlands, I mean, that's a really important question. That's a hotly contested issue, actually. That any port is a, of course, area to be considered as an important area for positive intergroup contact. Or opportunities for positive intergroup contact, anyway. Potential positive intergroup contact. Columbus, you failed us. Really proud of you, California. Indigenous Peoples Day. That's something, kind of. It's a token effort. I don't think any of us actually like the calendar system. We want to live by the season. And really, that seems to me to be the primary screaming complaint of my animal body, is that it wants to live in season with the land. And I think that's so valid, given the way that we are raping the land. I'm so tired of denying the soft animal of my body pretty much anything.
That was fun.
But it's not new material items I long for. It is true change. I do also want to be another layer to my own identity as they, she, is that I really want to be conscious of how much of a positive impact I can have on the conversation, and how much potential influence and power I might have on people's very real feelings about themselves. And I know that I can just say the worst things sometimes. But on this particular topic, I also just don't want to be a cisgendered, somewhat monastically celibate white woman going off about saving the children either. It's not exactly the vibe I'm going for, and it's not who I am as a person either. So, despite that being the very real impact of this setup, and I love it, and it's intentional, and it's beautiful, I'm trying to demonstrate sophicism to you in a way that can't be ignored. I hope it's working. It's working on me, girl. Keep going. But it's just because I want to see more women loving in the world. More everybody loving women and more women loving women. And I just think that it would solve so much, honestly. And trans women loving trans women. Yeah, oh my god, what a new era for the love revolution. It's happening. I see it all the time. It's fucking beautiful. It's so good. And trans men loving trans women, and just all of these different intersections of support and connection and love. It's amazing. And I see it. I haven't heard any national voices with a strong enough ability to articulate and a palatable enough means of articulating to really break into the national discourse on the topic. And the people that I have seen having national discourse on the topic of transgender identity and legal protections at that level of like advocating for legal protections don't have the time to do a full-on media campaign. They're desperately trying to save lives. This is a bleeding out life's blood problem in America and around the world. This is my bleeding heart liberal self packaged for you in the hopes that it will help keep the flame of hope alive for those of my people on the front lines.
God,
and also
such a serious person.
Help those who don't understand that there even is a war front to rapidly come to understand and decide how to ally with those who are endangering and being endangered in their frontline work. Not endangering, being endangered during their frontline work. Yeah, sorry. I'm still puking up that Stallman report bullshit. It's true, it's just coming out of me in chunks.
It is.
It's awful, it's horrific to watch. I can see it happening. It's uncomfortable. But
Yeah, so, and I'm not trying to say that my personal understanding of my own trans identity is like this pure political structure that I've outlined with like exacting definitions and details and dates and times, and this is how I built it, and here's why, and let me show you the analytics, because that's not it. That's too soulless, but it is, I am presenting it that way with the intention of pointing out how little soul it feels you are allowed to have when you have to fight your way out of that box and create yourself in a way that also advocates for your own existence. It will shape you and change you, and you won't get all the space that you deserve to have to fully feel the entire resonant musical nuance of your selfhood in its many-layered, authentic multiplicity. And to be quite honest, in this moment, I'm keeping the articulated aspects of my many-layered, multifaceted, unique, personal flavor of trans to myself for a bit longer in order to enjoy it. All things you notice on your own are yours to enjoy. It was a bit of a struggle, though. I had always, like I mentioned, the biggest core of my being when it came to allyship was feminism. So a lot of my construction of self as a woman or a girl and the experiences and socialization that I had that informed my idea of what that was, right? Everything I learned growing up as a kid about what it was to be this girl and a girl. Not just this one, but a girl. It's me, I'm a little alien. All of that was also somewhat embedded in my understanding of feminism. And it's not just free the nipple, give us the vote. It's literally our access to our own bodies is heavily restricted. Even in a cognitive sense. We are sexualized before we understand our own sexuality. That's insane. That's disgusting. That's rape culture. That's systemic child sexual abuse. And this is a huge part of my understanding of myself as a person. Trans? Question mark? I couldn't fathom. Yeah, and again with like sexualizing children, how do you think they come to understand themselves in a culture where jailbait is considered acceptable. Like, the parents are talking about it like it's funny. That's how are children supposed to know themselves in like a normal... You know what? Never mind. I'm not getting into this. People get so touchy about it.
Yeah, it could.
But it does go back to that spectrum that I mentioned. As you know, in math, an arrow indicates infinity. And as I mentioned, this area of androgyny is also, in theory, quite infinite. You've male, and you've female. As gender identity constructs. I think men and women would kind of be more appropriate, to be quite honest. Male and female still refers to biological sex, although we have not even begun to discuss the spectrum of intersex, which is also a thing. It involves hormones, primary and secondary sex characteristics, and it affects like 10% of the population. And so it's not a small number. Maybe it's 1%. Either way, it's still variation. And it is this concept of a spectrum. And to what extent there are limits on spectrum thinking as it applies in the real world practicalities. I'll give it that. But intersex as a embodied experience is under represented, and often gaslit, demeaned, inappropriately, like medical decisions have been inappropriately made on behalf of intersex people for time out of mind. Same for transgender people and women. So oh gosh, yeah, black and brown people too. Everybody but the cream of the crop. But the cream of the crop. Oh my god, I'm not rapping today. I'm not rapping any day. I don't rap. I'm not a rapper. Definitely not. So you have... oh, sorry, yeah, I literally just said let's do men and women. Men, women... These are like our social understandings of what these genders are, and it's created through norms, which are like implicit and explicit, proscriptive and descriptive suggestions for the way that these identities behave, and not just suggestions, but prototypes. The way that these identities behave have like ways that we all can identify and agree to a certain extent. Gosh, but yeah, I'm so in that argument that I made about how this goes on infinitely. Wow, it's so pretty. Anyway, as I internalized the concept of this spectrum in my larger understanding of what transgenderism really is and how nuanced it can really get, I learned that I tend to count myself like here, but when it's convenient, I do this. I come over here, and it's just like whenever it's convenient to me. And I kind of bop back and forth right around here. I kind of cycle between these interior, somewhat insulated, not quite full androgyny, not like deeply, you know,
working on that androgynous angle, and leaning full neutral, non-binary, like mixing up those
Leaning
different
deep
palettes
into the
of
meld.
gender expression, not doing that. Yeah, these people are artists, man. Like, no wonder we are trying to keep the artists down, right? Like, they would be so unstoppable if they had their way. Yeah, look, it's totally astrology sign of some sort. So, yeah, so I see myself as like here, and I really had to go through this process of being like, well, if that's true, and I tend to be, you know, a bit more on the femme side, and a bit more on the mask side than the super androgynous people, but like, I'm not even on the edgy edge. You know, whenever I do, actually sometimes, and I'll be real with you, sometimes I do this too. And very rarely will I do this, but sometimes I will do this. It's the 3 standard deviation thing that I mentioned before about, like, yeah, like the normal distribution of it all. I, as a human being, enjoy moving along spectrums depending on the needs of myself and my people, the people around me, my community, the people that I consider friends and family. And this informs my life. And so this, I rarely go all the way to this 3rd standard deviation. That would just be so much. I'm just not super femme and I'm not super mask. Most of the time I just bop and back and forth between this 1st standard deviation. And yeah, here's the true mean. Yeah, I know, I'm having fun.
Yeah, you gotta keep in mind,
but,
these
yeah,
are actually
this,
infinites, but depending
that's
on
just where
group,
I am. And
your
so
mean will
the more I
change.
internalize that, the more I could not accept feminine gendered identity in totality, because I know that I do this. And I know that it's convenient. I know it is based on a structure of rule design that, you know, I have nurtured and grown throughout my life as a biochemical part of my being. And so this is a natural result, is having this sense of identity. And once I realized that, once I internalized that, I was like, oh, well, I can't consider myself just she, because if I say she all the time, when what I really do is this, then I'm saying I'm lying. I hate lying. I hate anything that gives me dissonance, especially about myself or my identity. So, you know, like, it makes me stressed out. It makes everybody stressed out. But so I was like, if I keep just being she to everybody, it means I'm cutting this beautiful picture of my spectrum in half, and I'm saying I only allow people to interact with me or otherwise engage with me or respond to engagement if you come at me using feminine gender norms. And that is what I would have to say. And the truth is, I enjoy masculine gender norms. I enjoy them being applied to me. I enjoy using them. I try not to abuse them. They are really fun. But it's part of my love of sports and games and the art of war and philosophy, computing, and all of this stuff, all of this male-coded stuff that when I was growing up was so male-coded that I just learned it as a boy. Like, in my head, I just said, okay, well, we'll just be boys this time. Right? And I built that into myself. I said, okay, well, in order to learn this thing, we'll just have to be a boy. And so instead of saying, well, I'm a woman and I'm going to learn it and be a woman, I thought to myself, I'll just be a boy and that'll make it easier for me to learn these things. And so that is what I did a lot of the time. And it's not all the time. There are additional layers of nuance to my gendered identity, but and the way that I construct, like, or choose what I'm expressing or how I'm identifying. But that was a huge part of it. And that's bitter. That's a bitter revelation for someone who is such a feminist and who was assigned female at birth and who loves women and who thinks women loving women would revolutionize the world. to have these identities that are like parts
Often
of myself that I
polarized,
grew
to be quite honest,
as a boy, like as a young boy or as a young man or as a full adult man, and was like, yeah, that is like, that's the man in me. And totally casual, very tomboy, very it was acceptable means of thinking at the time. But this revelation of a gender spectrum really forced me to reevaluate the way that I was learning information, the way that I was coding information for myself, and honestly, the way that I was kind of casually getting away with utilizing gender norms outside of my own. And getting a little bit of like a credentialing or a pass for the use. And that is totally dependent on time and place, and not getting into that layer of granularity because it's not relevant or useful. But there are ways in which, you know, that happens. And so, or you know, maybe I'll have to think on that more, or maybe I should actually read all the studies that I should have read.
Yeah, don't say.
I have a really hard time listening if I hear the sound of something else that I'm trying to listen harder to. It's just, it's that dog in me, you know. I can just hear the dog whistles. But yeah, this map is really cool. I'll save it. This is cool. Save as.
I do want to add on to that.
Gender spectrum deviations.
Just,
you know, I really just don't think that my experiences in this are super unique to me. I think there are many people who experience something similar. There's plenty of cisgender, assigned female at birth, men and women out there with mixed ideas of their gender construct that has, up until this point, gone ignored because the, like, I don't want to say superordinal, but this larger biochemical marker factor was prioritized as a means of categorizing them into gender identities. And that was enforced because it was useful as a means of dividing labor in a colonial system that required excessively optimized labor in order to continue to power its ongoing genocides.
Yeah, and dividing that labor between male and female was just so convenient. And home and war, also very convenient. Obsession with women's reproductive rights is rooted in this, too. And the threat of our babies. The constant threat of, first of all, whether or not we will have babies, who gets to decide, and then what happens to them once they're alive.
You know, I took the time to do some self-construction recently in much the same way. I was given the same space, and I tried to use it appropriately, but I was also kind of dealing with this concept of this generational wound of child sexual abuse, and in a collective with our people in America, in the world, under conditions of American imperialism and global colonial infrastructure, what that means for us. If social reality can be rapidly reconstructed, then I really, at this point, think so too can physical distribution of peoples and resources be rapidly and intentionally constructed. And the infrastructure is there, the commerce is there. And I can't reiterate enough the parsimony of decision rules when assessing whether or not something is to the common good. It's a very simple decision rule. Does this protect property or does it protect people? It's very easy. And if you took a look at all policy and legislation with that perspective and you chose to rewrite it with the intention of protecting people, with informed, well-researched, data-driven decision-making, we could probably rapidly save the human race.
Definitely change the world.
I'll leave you with one last thing since we have a little bit of extra time. If you haven't tired of elves yet, and you want a really good Tolkien-like fantasy series with maybe a bit more whimsical quirks, and in my opinion, a much more fun protagonist, I would recommend Kristen Britton's Screenwriter series, and the relationship with the elves and the situationships with the elves in that series are very relevant when it comes to American politics and activating and motivating the majority into general strike. That's the ultimate goal. For me, some kind of general strike. Let's go. May Day, May 1st. Everybody just don't do anything for a day. Just don't do anything. Just hang out. Take a nap. Not your phone, not TV.
Not work.
Try to sleep through the whole day. Feel your body.
Sick.
Breathe. Try to sense everyone else breathing with you. Next Benedict should have lived. True. And all trans kids deserve to live. all kids deserve to live? Like,
Jesus Christ.
What?
And thrive, man. Like, what the hell?
So yeah, my pronouns are they, she. More often than not, I feel like they. When I'm being particularly feminine, labor-oriented, I feel like she comes up a lot. But this is what it sounds like when you're still kind of getting your mind around the whole idea. More than anything, I enjoy being recognized in the moment by the people I'm interacting with, based on their level of presence with me and their level of understanding of me and what I'm doing and my placement in the world. When those people gender me with they, I can hear the love and respect and the seeing of me, the visibility, and the euphoria that comes with visibility. So the more someone appropriately intuits where I am in my gender identity, the happier I am, of course. And when they give me the right gender appellation, I feel euphoria. But I've been struggling a lot with experiencing that at all. And that's been out of behavior of mine that has shown disrespect to other trans people in my life. So I'm having a hard time with self-respect. I think that's probably a very transgender experience to have if everything I've read about it and heard about it and remember about it is anything to go by. It's probably normal. And I can't bear to leave my sisters and brothers and my fellow NBs and gender fluid folk and gender anarchist individuals alone on the front lines any longer. Me and my warfare metaphors. That's a part of it too. I know, I just told you. This is good. This lo-fi. Thank you, lo-fi artists. Amazing. I guess the last thing that I want to say is that in a culture, in a socio-political environment, in a media narrative, in a living and embodied way, being compared to a pedophile, not good for the self-esteem. Being associated with pedophiles, like with the free software movement, not good for the self-esteem. So I see so many trans programmers and developers trying to create their own work, their own spaces, their own beautifully imagined terraniums and terrains. No, I was gonna say something else though. Leaving space, I figure I'll talk over it. Oh wait, what? I think I was supposed to listen to her better. What was she saying? Just kind of zoning out. Trying to create their own work, their own spaces, their own beautifully imagined terraniums and terrains. No, I was gonna say something else though. I have no idea. With experiencing that at all. I was fully zoning out. I do like the sound of my own voice. I think I'm kind of a hypnotist. Just told you. Oh, whatever.
I think it was pretty evil, violent, and vindictive, the timing of that pedophilic implication association for early transgender people, especially in online environments. That was intentionally toxic and poisonous. That was like nerve gas. Nerve gas on a new identity. Rough stuff. Yeah, I'll have to go back over it. I don't know what it was.
Well, a new resurgence of identity.
That I adore.
A new resurgence of identity that has always existed, but that we're seeing, get a wonderful amount of new knowledge, awareness, acknowledgement in mainstream culture. It's just phenomenal. It is really revolutionary, and seeing this go down the way that it has been, in the sense of like watching the creative joy for every person as their ability to define themselves expands far beyond trans people. This is everyone. They made room for us to be able to define things. And I say they as though I do not identify also as trans, although as I just spent 4 hours explaining, I do. And from what I understand, this is very normal when you're feeling new in the identity. You spend a lot of time explaining how you are that thing, even though you being that thing is quite obvious. I've personally never experienced that, so didn't think it was real, and am uncomfortable to find that it is very much the reality, and that I probably am only experiencing 1/10 of what it feels like for new trans people, especially in the Midwest and the Bible Belt. So hats off to you, Midwest and Bible Belt. You're doing a great job. Keep it real. And we'll see you next time.
Adore about the people of the region I live in is that they are all very good environmental scientists to a certain extent. Like they're excellent outdoors people. They really have strong scientific literacy and knowledge about biology, and far surpassing my own when it comes to like gardening and growing. They're hydroponics people. Like they're really good with growing things in water, which is exciting. Algae growing has, especially inside.
Oh, it's over. We're done. Oh no. Where should I? Clicking around.
Hello. Wow, that was a lot. Thank you for sitting with me today while we went through all of the ins and outs of my personal conceptualization of transgenderism for myself and in general. I hope it was illuminating. I trust that those who are concerned for my welfare and who I know in life are going to use that information to better care for me. I hope. No, they will. And it will only be through misunderstandings that we ever come to suffer together, but it will always be together. So no worries, and I'm sorry, and I love you. That's how you know I'm too tired. I start just automatically saying sorry. I know it grieves people who care about me. I'm like, it's not that big of a deal. It's just an autonomic response at this point is how it feels. I just don't care. I'm like, oh no, I'm sorry. Oh no. It's normal. Like, well, I mean, it's not normal, but if you're gonna be this, like, thinky about stuff, the default stuff, like, shows up. And I would so much rather just, like, compulsively blurt I'm sorry than like be racist or something. You know what I mean? Like if I'm gonna default, I would rather not slack on the aversive racism fight on that front. I would much rather like default on just like, oh no, sorry, I'm bad. And that's just like my particular thing, and it's not a family thing. It's not a I mean, it's systemic to a certain extent, but it's more like, I mean, I think a lot of us have it. You know, you stretch people out too far, you make them too tired, too whatever, too anything, and they start just feeling like, okay, anything to make that stop. So you could tell, yeah, this is emotional torture. It really is for you and for me. And I hope that you are taking good care of yourself while we go through these really intense topics. On my part, I'm going to hang up with you and finish some of the clickety-clacketing that I was doing today and then make some dinner. I'm going to make some dinner. It's going to be nice and warm in my house and the smell of food will be everywhere, and I'm just going to focus on every last part of my quiet evening, and honestly, it'll be restorative. It'll be good. I might watch a show, you know, or read, or just like take in all the new space, or the new ways I'm seeing space, or the new ways I'm taking up space. That's good for you. I have faith. I just have faith in the process. It'll work. It'll be good. It'll totally work. Oh, but for now, my friends, it is dinner time. All the best, and all of my sincere gratitude for listening and for tuning in. This has once again been a Cozy Cast.